Hello and welcome to Homegrown at Home. We're Windborne. This is Jeremy, Lynn, Lauren, and I'm Will, and we're excited to be singing for you today. We're going to start with what's probably the greatest hit of American labor song, Which Side Are You On?, written by Florence Reese. And she wrote it during what's known as the Harlan County Coal Wars. Her husband was a union organizer, an activist, and he was being hunted by the sheriff J.H. Blair, who came to her house late at night to look for him. And Florence was so mad after he left, they didn't find him luckily, that she took the calendar off the wall and she wrote the verses for this song on the back of it, right then and there. This is Which Side Are You On?
Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Come all you good workers, good news to you I'll tell, of how that good old Union has come in here to dwell. Oh, which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? My daddy was a miner, and I'm a miner's son, and I'll stick with the Union till every battle's won. Oh, which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? They say in Harlan County there are no neutrals there. You'll either be a Union man or a thug for J.H. Blair. Oh, which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Oh, workers, can you stand it? Oh, tell me how you can. Will you be a lousy scab or will you be a man? Don't scab for the bosses, side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Which side are you on, boys? Which side are you on? Thank you. So that was a song off of our past album called Song on the Times, and it represents what's become a real theme for Windborne, which is singing songs from the past, and in particular from past movements for people's rights from the past 400 years, and singing them for some of the struggles that we face in today's world. And we're going to follow that up with a piece by one of the most prolific composers of American labor song, a man by the name of Joe Hill. And Joe actually came from Sweden. He came over as an immigrant and made his way over to Portland, Oregon in 1910. And he met up there and joined fairly quickly with the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW, popularly known as the Wobblies. And the Wobblies were a prominent labor union of the time, and they had the opponents that you might expect from a prominent labor union of the time. These factory bosses and lords of industry who didn't really want their workers organizing for better wages, better working conditions, all of that. They also had some opponents that you might not expect, and one of these was the Salvation Army. The Salvation Army was opposed to the IWW, and this wasn't even just a theoretical opposition. No, they would actually send their marching bands out to the rallies where the IWW was having speeches, and they would march with the big trombone and the tuba and the big bass drum, and they'd march up and down the street and try and drown out the speakers so they couldn't recruit any more workers and they couldn't spread the message. And this is kind of strange. You might be wondering why they were doing this. And it was actually because they thought that the Salvation Army was spending too much time organizing people to make life on earth better and not enough time thinking about the salvation of their eternal souls. So when the speakers would be out there trying to make a speech and talk about the power of collective action and coming together, the salvation... So as you can see, that could get kind of annoying. And Joe got a little bit sick of that. And he decided that, I'm a songwriter, and he decided that the next time the Salvation Army was going to come along marching and playing one of these old hymn tunes, that the workers would be prepared. And so the Salvation Army came marching down the street, and suddenly all of the workers burst into song, sang right along with the big trombone and all of that, but with new lyrics that were making fun of the Salvation Army. And this is a trick he pulled a number of times. This is probably his most well-known. It started off as a hymn called In the Sweet By and By, which if you don't know it, you can imagine what it says. Keep your head down and don't make a fuss and work hard and you'll be rewarded in the afterlife. And Joe said, no, that's not good enough. And by the time he was done with it, he said, you will eat by and by in that glorious land above the sky. Work and pray, live on hay. You'll get pie in the sky when you die. That's a lie. And that's the chorus of the song. So if you're listening at home and you can't help joining in, please do sing along with us. And this is The Preacher and the Slave, or Pie in the Sky. You will eat by and by in that glorious land above the sky. Work and pray, live on hay. shout. Give your money to Jesus, they say. He will cure all diseases today. You will eat by and by in that glorious land above the sky. Work and pray on day. You'll get pie in the sky when you die. That's a lie!
Something good in this life. You're a sinner, and bad man they tell.
When you die, you will sure go to hell. But you will eat by and by in that glorious land above the sky. Work and pray all day. You'll get pie in the sky when you die. That's a lie. Working folk of all countries unite. Side by side, we for freedom will fight. When the world and its wealth we have gained, to the rich we will sing this refrain. You will eat by and by, when you've learned how to cook and to fry. Chops of wood will do you good. There's no pie in the sky when you die. You will eat by and by, when you've learned how to cook and to fry. Chop some wood will do you good. There's no pie in the sky when you die. There's no pie in the sky when you die. There's just sky.
Oopsie. Can I pass you this?
Always a fun one.
Yes, so next we're going to sing a song whose origins are not too far away from where we are currently recording from. We're recording from Concord, Massachusetts. This is at Jeremy's mom's house. Thank you, Liza, for the use of this space. And this song comes from a strike that happened in Lawrence, Massachusetts in the early 1900s. And this was a strike in the textile industry that later came to be known as the Bread and Roses Strike. And it was called that largely because of a speech that was given as part of that strike by this union activist and organizer named Rose Schneiderman. And part of what she said is, "What the woman that labors wants is the right to live, not simply exist. The right to life as the rich woman has the right to life, and the sun, and music, and art. The worker must have bread, but she must have roses too." And so then after this amazing speech, and after the strike was over, later a man named James Oppenheim wrote a poem including some of those sentiments, which was then later put to music. The more popular version that people often know is one written by Mimi Farina, but the earliest version of the melody that we could find is by Martha Coleman. And so that's what we based our arrangement of Bread and Roses on. As we go marching, marching in the beauty of the day, a million darkened kitchens, 1,000 mill-lofts gray, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing, bread and roses, bread and roses. As we
go marching, marching in the beauty of the day. A million darkened kitchens, 1,000 mil lost gray, are touched with all the radiance that a sudden sun discloses. For the people hear us singing bread and roses, bread and roses. As we go marching, marching, we fight for children too. For they are watching, learning, and they'll make the world anew. Our life shall not be sweated from birth until life closes. Hearts starve as well as bodies. Give us bread, but give us roses. As we go marching, marching, unnumbered women dead go crying through our singing their ancient cry for bread. Small art and love and beauty, their drudging spirits new. Yes, it is bread we fight for, but we fight for roses too. As we go marching, marching, together we stand tall. For the rising of the women means the rising of us all. No more the drudge and idler tend that toil where one reposes, but a sharing of life's glories, bread and roses, 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 bread and roses. Give us bread, but give us roses. Bread and roses, bread and roses, bread and roses, bread and roses.
We're going to do a piece that's a little bit of an interesting story because the text and the melody are each available in the Library of Congress and the Folklife Center, but in different manners. The text comes from, it's the oldest text that we sing. It comes from Gerard Winstanley, who is the leader of the Diggers movement in the 1600s in the UK. The Diggers were a group of radical Protestants who decided that they were going to claim common land and cultivate it for the good of all, interpreting the Bible to be calling for social equality, to level the social classes. They were also known as the True Levelers. And he wrote this great text, and then at some point along the way, it joined up with this song family that's known as the Captain Kidd song family. The Ballad of Captain Kidd was written, published in 1701, and it, along the way, gained a bunch of different texts. In the Sacred Harp, it has "What Wondrous Love Is This?" Wondrous Love. It also joined up with Sam Hall, a bunch of other texts, and this is one of them. So it's a piece called "The Digger's Song" from kind of 1640s and maybe sometime in the 1700s.
You noble diggers all, stand up now, stand up now. You noble diggers all, stand up now. The wasteland to maintain, sing cavaliers by name. Your digging to disdain, and your persons all defame. Stand up now, diggers all.
Your houses they pull down.
Stand up now, stand up now. Your houses they pull down. Stand up now.
Your
houses they pull down to freight poor men in town. But the gentry must come down, and the poor shall wear the crown. Stand up now, diggers all. With spades and hoes and plows, stand up now, stand up now. With spades and hoes and plows, stand up now. Your freedom to uphold, seen cavaliers are bold, to kill you if they could, and rights from you withhold. Stand up now, diggers all.
The gentry are all round. Stand up now, stand up now. The gentry are all round. Stand up now. The gentry are all round. On each side they are found. Their wisdom so profound, to cheat us of the ground.
Stand up now, diggers all. The lawyers they conjoin.
Stand up now, stand up now.
The lawyers they conjoin. Stand up now. To arrest you they advise, such fury they devise. But the devil in them lies, and hath blinded both their eyes. Stand up now, diggers all. The clergy they come in.
Stand up now, stand up now.
The clergy they come in.
Stand up now.
The clergy they come in and say 'tis a sin that we should now begin our freedom for to win. Stand up now, diggers all.
The club is all their law. Stand up now, stand up now. The club is all their law. Stand up now. The club is all their law, to keep poor folk in awe. But they no vision saw to maintain such a law. Stand up now, diggers all. Against the hate and fear, stand up now, stand up now. Against the hate and fear, stand up now. The press have closed their eyes, they spread the tyrants' lies. They'll tell you with their cries who to love and to despise. Stand up now, diggers all.
Thank you. We're going to continue on with a piece that you won't find anywhere in the Library of Congress or American Folklife Center archive, but we are singing it at the special request of the librarians. This is a piece that was inspired or sort of based on a piece called 4 Pence a Day, which came from the north part of England and came out of the lead mining industry there. And it talks about, the original text talks about the really dismal working conditions and starvation wages that those workers were paid. And we sort of looked at that text and have rewritten the lyrics to a subject that's a little closer to home for us. And the melody that we're using is a piece by another group, or a melody by another group called Cross of the Hands. And this is a song that is one of our current favorites, dedicated to the librarians. Thank you all for having us.
My father was a folk musician. He used to sell LPs, cassette tapes in the 1980s, and later on CDs. I told him I'd take up his trade, but he looked at me to say, it's very hard to work for just 0.4 cents a play. 0.4 cents a play, my friend, just 0.4 cents a play. It's very hard to work for just 0.4 cents a play. He said back in the good old days, the lines would all be long. As people queued to buy CDs, they formed a joyous throng. But now the music's all online, for discs they will not pay. My darling child, the times have changed, that's how it is today.
For now they put the CDs down, and with a curious eye, they ask the dreaded question then, are you on Spotify? And with a sigh we answer yes, but this we'd rather say, it's very hard to work for just 0.4 cents a play. 0.4 cents a play, my friends, just 0.4 cents a play. It's very hard to work for just 0.4 cents a play. At the cafe just down the street, they roast a tasty bean. I order up a cappuccino, it costs 1,000 streams. And if I want to pay my rent, I'm very sad to say, it costs 250,000 streams at 0.4 cents a play. 0.4 cents a play, my friends, just 0.4 cents a play. It costs 250,000 streams at 0.4 cents a play. I have not come to tell you all that Spotify is bad. In fact, I sometimes stream some music while hanging out with Dad. But if I love an artist's songs for their CD, I'll pay, 'cause I know how hard it is to work for 0.4 cents a play. 0.4 cents a play, my friends, just 0.4 cents a play, 'cause I know how hard it is to work for 0.4 cents a play. 0.4 cents a play, my friends, just 0.4 cents a play. So support musicians because they're worth more than 0.4 cents a play.
It's good advice.
On that note, we do invite you to find us on all of the social media platforms. We are at Windborne Singers on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We are on Spotify, and you can find us our website at windbornesingers.com. We are also on Patreon at patreon.com/Windborne. We'd love to have you be part of our community there. We do have one more piece for you. We want to say a big thank you to the Library of Congress and American Folklife Center for having us at this Homegrown at Home concert series. And this last piece is the one that really sort of brought us together with the archive. We arranged it as part of the Archive Challenge concert at the Folk Alliance International Conference back in 2020. Where the Library of Congress invited artists to look through the archive, find a song, and sort of give it new life in their own style. And we found this piece called The Song of Hard Times, sung by Lily Steele, originally from Kentucky. And it's a song that the original text was this really biting social critique of people in a community all trying to cheat each other. And it was one that we felt, like many of the songs that we sing, still feels very relevant today. But we wanted to sort of zoom out a little bit, as it were. So we've added several verses to the original text to sort of trace the lines of power up the ladder. So thank you once again for having us. This is The Song of Hard Times.
Come on, you good people, I'll sing you a song. I'll tell you the truth, I know I ain't wrong. It's from father to mother, from sister to brother. They've gotten the fashion of cheating each other, and it's hard times.
Since cheating has got so much into fashion, I'm afraid it'll spread all over the nation, and it's hard times.
Here's the old baker, bakes all the bread we eat. Likewise the old butcher, by selling his meat.
They'll tip up the stilliards and make 'em weigh down,
And swear it's good weight if it lacks 10 pound, and it's hard times.
Since cheating has got so much into fashion, I'm afraid it'll spread all over the nation.
And it's hard times. Here's the old banker with keys to his vault.
I swear to you
all, he's worse by tenfold.
he'll hand you 1,000 and call it a loan.
But then soon enough he'll take all that you own, and it's hard times. Here comes the senator with a tie and a smile. He'll pledge and he'll promise and swear it's no guile. He'll go to the Capitol and say he's your friend.
Then he'll line his silk pockets and leave you again, and it's hard times.
Since cheating has got so much into fashion, I'm afraid it'll spread all over the nation, and it's hard times. But the Lord of Industry owns the whole lot. He's got nothing to fear, 'cause the senator he's bought. He's fixing the vote and he's rigging the game, but he points to your neighbor when you ask who's to blame. Since cheating's the way of the big corporation, by now it's spread all over the nation, and it's hard times.
Now I've concluded, I've finished my song. I've told you the truth, and I know I ain't wrong.
The butcher may cheat you, the banker ain't fair,
But the problem is really the billionaire,
and it's hard times.
Thanks for watching.
Thank you
all
so much.
Thank you.
We'll see you later.